Well, welcome back to the Eco Spirit Tour, walk, talk, whatever we call this. Three people who have had an immense, well, actually four, I want to include another one. Three Americans, first of all. Henry David Thoreau, who wrote Walden. John Muir, who started the Sierra Club, and John Burroughs. Now, they were all Americans, 19th century, and one Canadian who has had a profound effect on me is Grey Owl, who was not an Indigenous person, but had a dream and lived it. I want to read something from John Burroughs today. He wrote in 1912, after being talked to, maybe even talked down to, by an ordained minister who said, well, if you're so much into this, why don't you write a gospel about it? And John did. He called it the Gospel of Nature. Well worth reading. I'm going to just do some quotes and make some comments. He says in the Gospel of Nature that the love of nature has a distinctly spiritual value, which is why I'm doing this. It does not come to a person who is wholly absorbed in selfish, worldly, or material ends. As it is, the wonder, reverence, and love we feel in the presence of the unfathomable universe. And you can see where a lot of my terminology comes from just by that quote. But it's true. If all we do, for whatever the reason, is be self-centered, then this just becomes backdrop. It's wallpaper. You know, that's it. And unless you're dealing with it, it doesn't really matter. But I think you lose something of yourself. And I think that's more important. He says, nature is the power that is everywhere present and active. It's not just sitting back there, it's actually doing stuff, in whose hands the visible universe is held and nourished. It is a power that we can see, touch, and hear, realizing every moment of our lives how absolutely dependent we are upon it. Now, in our world today and in my lifetime, we have exploited the earth unbelievably. We have diminished the earth unbelievably. They are now even calling this period of time the Anthropocene, which means the human, and the whole idea that we, more than anything else affecting the earth, we have affected it more. You know, that can be argued, but it really needs to be thought of. And we're dependent on it. The water, the air, plants and animals just to eat. Without them, I don't want to take a pill for breakfast. We are nature's children, and we all need to learn how swift and sure is the penalty of disobedience to its commands. Now, in the New Testament Gospels, we have God is love. Burroughs gives us another point of view with nature. It's not always love. Nature has, like the laws of physics, if you will, that can't be transgressed. And when they are, you suffer. There's consequences. We have probably, and I feel this myself, the best life that humans have ever lived. We are comfortable, we are self-indulgent, we have more than we even want or need. But there's a consequence, there's a price. and nature will exact that price from us one way or the other. The lover of nature is not looking for mere facts, but for meaning, for that which can be translated into the terms of one's own life. Yet, we need facts, significant facts, that throw light upon the ways of animate and inanimate nature. And there's a struggle here, if you hear it. People come here and sometimes, or any place, I mean, I've been out in the mountains and seen the ocean and what have you, and you can go, wow, great. What does it mean to you? Is it just another self-centered experience? Okay, then you got it. But the whole idea is, when you look at something, especially in details, that's where I find the most meaning. You can look at all of this and go, terrific. Or I remember standing in the Rockies at the base of a hemlock tree in what was called Hemlock Grove. And I mean, this thing was like this. I mean, we have big pines here, but this thing was like this. I couldn't even get around it. And of course, once you get out to the West Coast, you go sequoias and redwoods, you know, like that. I mean, if that doesn't blow your mind the way, for me, looking at the pyramid would, you know, don't get out of bed. You're wasting time, energy, and breath. And here's the key. Humanity changes the conditions to suit the thing. Nature changes the thing to suit the conditions. It adapts the plant or the animal to its environment. Things are not designed, things are begotten. Now think about that. We have all of this, which we have created, and yet we change it to suit the way we feel, the way we think, as if it's here for our amusement or whatever else we want to do with it. Nature, like climate change, is going to say to everything that I'm looking at, including me, here are the conditions. Can you adapt to them? Because if you can't, toot sweet. Nature does not preach. It enforces, it executes. All its answers are yes or no. Put yourself in its way, and it will crush you, burn you, freeze you, sting you, bite you, or devour you. The law of nature is eat and be eaten. Keep that in mind. But this is the thing. Whatever's going on the island, if I get in its way, because I don't belong here, I'm a visitor, I don't live here, it will burn me, bite me, sting me, devour me. That's nature. I've had confrontations with animals. I've learned to respect them and give them a lot of space. And I mean, I had out in the Grasslands National Park in Saskatchewan, I had an encounter with a rattlesnake. Something you don't want, because I was 3 hours from the nearest hospital and I would have been dead by the time I got there. That's respect. And that's a bite, trust me. The knowledge of nature reveals to us how transient and insignificant we are, and how vast and everlasting is the earth, which was long before we were and will be long after we are gone. That is, the human species as a whole. Nature takes the conceit out of us and reveals all of our petty human ideas about the universe. Flood, fire, wind, and gravity are for us and against us with indifference. Now, I was in Labrador, and I was in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and I got picked up in a small boat and brought to Mud Island. And I spent the day there with Indigenous peoples. When we had a feast, and when it was all over, it was nighttime, and we got back in the boat. The boat had no running lights, and the man who was guiding this boat, I'm sitting in the front and I'm going, how does he know where we're going? But he did. That's the thing. He was so intimate with those channels and stuff, and it was a fairly long trip, that he wasn't lost. I was. But then I looked up, and I've been in caves, which are absolutely, black. There's no reference to anything. Well, outside of sitting in the boat and looking up at the sky, there was no reference to anything on earth. Everything was black. I knew I was in water, but that was it. But when I looked up at the sky, I felt so insignificant. Whatever I thought of myself, my feeling is the universe doesn't even know I'm here and cares less. And, your whole ego goes, and that's it. And yet, I never felt as close to the universe at that point. I was looking at stars and planets and whatever else was taking place, and it was like, wow. I saw it literally for the first time. And it's stayed with me, obviously. He ends with, nature is just. It gives pound for pound, measure for measure, makes no exceptions, shows no mercy, and never winks at any infringement of its commands. Politicians, corporations should really pay attention to that, and the average person as well. We cannot do what we think we can get away with, because we can't get away with it. It will come back and bite us, devour us, sting us, freeze us, and burn us. Because that's the way nature is. Mother Nature has always been this kind of fairy goddess that runs around the woods, sprinkling fairy dust like Tinkerbell. No. Don't mess with her. She'll be kind if you pay attention. She will be ruthless with you if you don't. It's an either-or situation, and that's the future.